So I thought we were in a pretty clean run of Minecraft YouTubers not getting allegations recently. Like honestly, I thought we'd go the whole month without somebody getting called out for once. But while scrolling on Twitter, I got hit with possibly one of the worst tweets in existence. It was a tweet with a Google Doc attached, which doesn't usually end up being a good thing for whoever that tweet is about. And it hit me like a truck when I realized that this tweet was about Skeppy, one of the biggest Minecraft YouTubers, and if I'm being honest, one of my favorite creators when I was younger. Like, I was seriously considering copying the Skeppy drip back in the days, so this one hit me close to home. And it got so much worse when I opened the tweet because the replies weren't looking good. And when seeing the replies, I noticed that somebody else had made a post and their own Google Doc regarding Skeppy. And listen, after reading both of these, I'm not really sure how to feel. While they're both missing some evidence to back up their claims, they have a lot of good evidence and credentials that prove that interactions around these times likely did happen. However, how do YouTubers usually say this? Like, I'll tell you how it is. I'm no lawyer nor a legal expert, and all of these are allegations as everybody is innocent until proven guilty in the court of law, so please take everything in this video with a grain of salt, and remember it is alleged. Do your own research, and if you like them, the sources for this video alongside the script are linked in the description, like with many of my prior videos. Also, before you choose to comment about anything I say in this video, I do recommend watching the whole thing since I'll give my opinions on this whole thing later into the video. Now, I'm Alex, and let's talk about this Skeppy situation. So, as it seems, Skeppy was called out by two people, one called Kaya and the other called Seasire. They seem to both have made their posts in unison while promoting each other's documents, each sharing their alleged unique individual experiences with Skeppy. While Seasire had detailed their personal relationship dating Skeppy both in long-distance e-dating and meeting up in real life on occasion, Kaya's account was shorter, talking about some things which Skeppy did that they found weird when they were 16 and Skeppy was, well, into his 20s. Kaya says they had their first proper interaction with Skeppy on the Minecraft server MCC Island, where they spammed Skeppy to get his attention, which in turn worked and led them to start playing together both in MCC Island and in hypixel housing on Skeppy's house for that session. The full document links to a lot of screenshots which show Skeppy and Kaya playing various games together, and all in all, when going through this, I found it hard to believe that these are fake because 1, it takes a lot of effort to fake so many screenshots, and 2, because the logistics of it are all right. Hypixel bedware screenshots show maps that match up correctly with the map rotations of that time on their given date. Skeppy's hypixel housing house on the screenshots uses a house theme that is exclusive to YouTube ranks, and just the overall dates corroborating the story gives Kaya a very strong foundation for the claims. Which is when it gets kind of iffy because in some of these screenshots, Skeppy is calling Kaya pretty. Keep in mind at this point in time, Kaya was 16 and Skeppy was 22, which makes this behavior really weird and even weirder when we get into what Seasire had to say about Skeppy, which we'll get into a little bit later. Now, you might be asking, well, with everything that's been said, how do we know that Skeppy even knew Kaya's age? And the thing about that is, Kaya said they added each other, as you might recall I told you before. And Kaya also said that they had their age and pronouns in their bio. Pronouns also coming into play here because Kaya goes by the pronouns they/them, and trust me, this actually comes into play majorly here. A few days into spending time with each other, Skeppy and Kaya hop on a voice call for the first time to play some Bed Wars. And Skeppy wants to hear Kaya's voice, and in Kaya's own words, they have a deep voice, and don't usually talk in voice chat, okay? You following? Now, after Kaya spoke and said hi, Kaya says that Skeppy barely spoke and really just responded to whatever they said with one word at a time, that he left after they played a few games together, and that they just completely stopped talking after this. Now, remember how Skeppy was, again, allegedly calling this at the time 16-year-old pretty, and that the only mention of their age and pronouns were on their bio? Well, Kaya also decided to call Skeppy out for misgendering them by showcasing screenshots where Skeppy called Kaya a she, which makes sense given the name Kaya, it is a female name, but given their bio, Skeppy calling Kaya a her when they didn't identify themselves as that meant that Skeppy likely presumed, which obviously when somebody is called Kaya, that they were a girl. However, that was not the case. So in this case, Skeppy was either both ignoring Kaya's age and preferred pronouns, or it was Skeppy just not noticing either and presuming that Kaya was a girl, hopping on call after spending a bit of time with them and realizing that they weren't a girl and just, you know, having a moment of realization. But either way, there's a few things explicitly wrong with this. Firstly, if you're a content creator who's an adult and has a younger cult-like audience, calling someone, especially one of your fans, pretty online after privately inviting them to play with you, it feels a bit weird. The fact that you're even calling your fan pretty in that sense, even with the benefit of the doubt that they would be 18, is still pretty weird to some people. Like, a clear fan-creator power dynamic can happen, and that can end up pretty badly, especially when we remember what the context behind them even meeting was. Kaya was spamming Skeppy. Now look, in this situation, it's not like Kaya was fully innocent either, because when they were called pretty, they could have said, hey, I'm 16, and when they were called she, they could have said, hey, that's not my pronouns. But I'm also not going to blame a 16-year-old for not trying to step up against someone who they were literally fangirling over. Can I even say fangirling in this context? Either way, the whole Kaya situation is like, if it did happen, it's just really weird, but I think it can be written off as weird behavior towards a fan, where he should have checked the age but didn't, and we can back that fury up by presuming that he didn't even check the gender or Kaya's bio at all, assuming he was quiet in the call when he realized Kaya wasn't a girl, which is what Kaya directly claimed. Still though, even if it's like an e-dating situationship or whatever it was because it all took place online, checking the age of the person you're talking to and making sure that they're not a catfish or, are what you expect them to be is pretty high up in the priority list, I'm not gonna lie. So definitely some wrong from Skeppy's end throughout this whole thing if the allegations are true. Then there's Cesar's allegations, which are honestly also pretty crazy. This Google document was pretty long, but pretty much focuses on her relationship with Skeppy, which was primarily online but also in real life to an extent. Cesar being 18 and this whole thing taking place around November 2023 to November 2024. So in November 23, Cesar and Skeppy began talking. In May of 24, they began dating. A lot of stuff went down and they broke up for the first time in September. Then a bunch of more times until November 5th, where things finally ended. A lot of this is consensual adult relationship things, which in other words means that Cesar is calling out Skeppy for treating them like a bad partner and says they were abused by Skeppy, not physically though, just emotionally. Based on these screenshots, Skeppy was the type of person to say I love you and ghost her partner for a few weeks straight, but when it comes to relationships like these, it's complicated because in my opinion, it comes down to morals, and while I think that doing things like leaving your partner on red for a long time is morally wrong, I couldn't tell you how you should feel about them because you are entitled to your own opinion. Now, I don't want to discredit Cesar about this either because she alleges Skeppy to be a horrible partner, and what is worse is that they met when she was 15 and became a staff member on Skeppy's Minecraft server, and despite not really talking, it still feels weird to have someone you've known since they were 15 to be your partner a few months after they turned 18. Not illegal, as there weren't any true signs of grooming nor any alleged by Cesar, and it does sound like they only really started talking a while after Cesar turned 18, but still, it's just weird. And we'll get more into this grooming thing a bit later because it's one of the main things that both Cesar and Kaya allege on their documents without really being able to prove. While this document by Cesar is pretty lengthy, it does show proof of them being around Skeppy, even with video proof of them being directly mentioned by Skeppy in a video. And like Kaya's document, the timeline does match up with the messages provided. However, since a lot of this took place in text, I can't logistically line up Bed Wars map rotations with the messages, but still, I find Cesar's document to be pretty compelling evidence-wise, with some of her social media activity potentially helping back it up, which we'll get to in just a second. But first, I cannot stress this enough, like I said at the start of the video, do your own research. I cannot for the life of me explain everything that Cesar alleged without spending a good week writing this video, but in the text provided, it did genuinely seem like she was treated badly. Now, do I agree with everything she said? No, but it also doesn't matter because my main focus is on seeing if Skeppy did something illegal, and I'm not the moral police. And some people will hate me for saying this, but like a lot of what Cesar's document alleges is really just things that are morally wrong, in my opinion. Like him treating her badly. Now, she calls that emotional abuse, but I really can't tell you what counts as emotional abuse and what doesn't. In private relationships, things won't always be perfect, okay? So like, it feels a bit weird pocket watching someone else's past relationship for ethics, which is why I'm primarily focusing on the legal here. When Dream had been called out for doing similar things as Skeppy has been now, I had a 6,000 word video that got demonetized and I couldn't post since a lot of the allegations against Dream had iffy timelines. It was kind of easy to disprove them, but people just hated Dream so much that they ignored those facts. With the Skeppy situation, however, both Cesar and Kaya have timelines that to my knowledge match up, and to add some salt to the room, Cesar has been posting and reposting things that could have potentially hinted towards her relationship with Skeppy, which checks out again with her timeline of events, with the one tweet that addresses it directly and likely isn't a subliminal, only being a few days before this whole thing was posted. However, with all of that being said, it feels very odd to me that despite their timelines matching up and them having some sort of credibility to their claims, that they promoted each other's posts and posted at the same time, and that they used grooming as one of their main selling points in their tweets when there's no clear sign of that ever happening, which just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And just from reading these documents, like for example the Kaya one, they make it seem like what allegedly happened to them was just horrible when it really wasn't that bad. Like, okay, you got misgendered and got called pretty all in Minecraft chat, and that quote completely ruined you? Like, okay, sure. I very much like looking at both sides of of his situation before making a verdict, so of course we have to wait for Skeppy to make a statement if he chooses to do so. All he said so far is at the end of his latest video denying the claims by saying, quote, "Also, I wanted to quickly talk about something. Someone shared a tweet with me today, and I just want to say that it is absolutely not true. I would never ever do those things, and I'm planning on making a full response in detail if I need to. But yeah, sorry for putting this here. I have just been inactive on Twitter, so yeah." End quote, which likely means he'll respond if this gets kind of out of hand. Also, this is like the first longer commentary here on the channel in a long time. This is the kind of content I want to make, not with like topics that are this dark all the time. And I didn't really want this to be the first longer commentary I did for this new format. I actually had another one written out just talking about hypixel updates, but I wanted to get this out to you guys, and it fits the new format pretty well since it lets me get a lot of more information out without compressing it. So let me know if you enjoy these longer commentaries in the comments. And with that being said, I've been Alex. Thank you for watching. I love y'all, and yeah, see ya.
Got an Asian baddie and she down on her knees. I been eating Wagyu, yeah, straight